The 22nd verse of 1 Samuel 17. I love you, Karen Phillips. Thank you for keeping me in this church for 26 years. I'm reading from the New King James Version, but in this instance, I really like the Old King James because of its curious verbiage. The New King James says, David left his supplies in the hand of the keeper of, or in the hand of the supply keeper, ran to the army and came and greeted his brothers. I was attracted to this text as a young man when I was still studying from the Old King James Version. It is the baseline of all of my study, and it has this curious verbiage. David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage and ran into the army and came and saluted his brethren. Father, I thank you for your presence tonight. I thank you for the anointing that is in this room. And I really feel like I just want to run and jump and roll around in the floor. But I know that we need to take a few minutes to declare your word for somebody who needs clarity tonight, so that they too can run through a troop and leap over a wall. So bind the strong man and loose the Holy Ghost tonight so that we may receive your already anointed word in Jesus' name. Put your hand on your head and say, Father, help my mind. The enemy has jacked it up. Touch your neighbor and say, Father, here's the real problem right here. God bless you. May be seated. I want to hasten to come to the narrative of the text. And so what I will do is point out to you that as we approach this text and the keeper of the carriage, I am reminded that many of us come into life before our conscious minds accompany us. We are already accompanied by baggage we didn't ask to carry. I wish I had a witness in it. I mean, I have been a frequent flyer for a number of years. I started out 30 years ago as a young man. And the first time I came to Austin, I was a frequent flyer on Southwest Airlines and would fly out of the Midwest from Indianapolis, Chicago, Columbus, and across America. And then when I moved my home to Houston, Texas, 25 years or 4 years ago, when I moved my home to Houston, I switched over to what was then Continental Airlines. I actually switched them in 1993 before I moved to Houston, and then used it quite frequently. And one of the things that I like, I'm about to click off 1 million miles on United Airlines since the merger, and so that will guarantee me my elite status for the rest of my life. And I like that because on domestic itineraries, I get to carry 2 bags that weigh up to 70 pounds. You can't believe how much baggage I travel with, Karen. As a matter of fact, I said to Pastor Ron today, we had to slip in the store to get something, and I said something about the things I regularly carry in my luggage, and he said, you carry it all the time? I said, listen, man, I carry the largest bag you can carry without being forbidden to travel, and half of it is stuff that never comes out. It's just stuff I have to live with on the road. If you've been a road warrior, you know what I'm talking about. If you lived on the road, I have a suitcase that hasn't been unpacked for 30 years. It has been emptied into other suitcases when it wore out, but I've had a suitcase packed. Our bedroom is set up for my suitcase. It is my dresser. I live out of it at the end of my bed. It just stays there when I come home, and when I leave, I roll it out the door. Cheryl just keeps refreshing it for me. But I like that you say to yourself, what could you possibly carry 140 pounds of? Pastor Brooke, you're preaching to the choir. I say to myself, what are you carrying that weighs 140 pounds? I was checking in the airport a couple of weeks ago, and I was at the limit I've been at since the pandemic started, because you don't go anywhere very long these days. And I had 140 pounds of bags, and then I had 120 pounds of carry-on baggage. I know. And the lady checking me in looked at me somewhat skeptical, like you're looking at me right now. like I had lost my ever-loving mind. And she said, that's a lot of luggage. Brother Daniel, what she meant to say is, what is in that luggage? But she's been trained not to ask those kinds of questions. And so I said, it is a lot of luggage, and I'm going to be curious to get to the other end and find out what's in it. I'm embarrassed to say, when I got to the other end and opened it up, I realized it was just all my regular stuff. And when I got home, I said to Cheryl, listen, sweetheart, one of these days, I'm probably gonna get old. Not soon. But when I do, I suspect I cannot carry 300 pounds of luggage with me everywhere I go. We're gonna have to figure out how to expedite this. She said, well, we could ship it. I said, that's a good idea, let's ship it. She said, no, we could ship it. But you're a broke preacher. You can't afford to ship your luggage. You're gonna have to carry it with you everywhere you go. One of the hazards of traveling, and I in Europe have on occasion been stuck on the budget carriers and had to swear off of them, because one of the hazards of traveling the budget airlines is that there's a couple of them that permit you to carry everything you can carry on board, but they charge you if you check baggage to go in the hold of the plane. And I don't know what possesses some of you people to take bags that you can't even lift off of the ground and put in the overhead bin. Because sometimes I see people with bags that they knew when they threw it off of the bed and rolled it to the back of the car, there was no way they were going to be able to put it in that overhead bin, but they thought some sucker like me was going to help them put it in the overhead bin. So I entertained myself by watching you struggle to put that bag in the bin. It's not that I'm unwilling to help. I just think we might be able to use this as a teaching point today. So I like to wait, Pastor Schulz, until they finally turn around in exasperation and say, could you help me get that bag? And then I always say, oh, I'd be delighted to help you get that bag. And then as I lift it up in a sea of groanings and utterings and shoving it on the top, I say, wow, what could be that heavy in that bag? Are there bars of lead in there? I say this, not to belabor the point, but just to illustrate for you that some of us have wound up with people like my wife. Are we still live? Is all of this live stream? All right, let me rephrase that. We have wound up with people in our lives like some people I know. Cheryl is not a frequent flyer because God never called her to be an evangelist. So she doesn't like to travel, and I don't mean she doesn't like to come to Austin. Karen has been telling me for years, bring Cheryl to Austin. I've gotten her here like twice in 26 years. Cheryl doesn't like to travel across the street. It's 10 minutes to the church, and Cheryl acts like she's going on a missions trip. She's a homebody. She doesn't like to travel. But when we do travel, she travels like she is a platinum elite, Pastor Reginald. She loads up the bags, packs extra bags, and I say to her, it's going to cost you money to get that on the plane. She says, no, I'm not, because I'm with you. Don't cut your eyes over it, anybody. But you know what I'm talking about. You got some people in your life that brought extra baggage on the journey, and you have been carrying that extra baggage. If you act like you don't know what I'm talking about, some of you helped carrying the baggage that their mother dumped on them, their father dumped on them, 3 generations ago dumped on them, and you're carrying not just your baggage right now, you're carrying their baggage. Just maybe tap them on the down low and tell them everybody knows he's talking about you right now. Carrying the extra baggage. Let me pause there for just a minute to, if I may, insert myself in the narrative of David that is so familiar to us, and we have traveled down that road a little bit over the last year, but let me just illustrate this text, and then I'm going to go to my seat because I don't have much to say, but I want to underscore what God has already said here tonight and submit to you, my brothers and sisters, that that some of us are not struggling with the devil. We are not struggling with our in-laws. We are not fighting with Uncle Joe and politics. Our struggle is with what we brought with us, where we came from, to where we are at right now. You don't hear what I'm talking about. Just in order to get to the text I've submitted for your consideration, you're going to have to deal with at least this much context. David is sent on assignment by his father Jesse to his brothers who are in their perennial engagement with their enemy, the Philistines. And he says to them, I want you to take some cheese and bread down to your brothers and see how they do. Stick a pin in that, and I'm coming back to that in 38 seconds. But let me explain to you that some people are spending too much time down at the Barnes and the Nobles in the self-help section trying to find books on discovering your purpose and finding out God's plan for your life. You're not going to say amen to this, and I don't have time to work you up to it. But let me explain to you that you will find your purpose in obedience. All three of you, I thank you for patronizing me. But you are not going to find your purpose on Oprah. You are not going to find it in the self-help section. You're going to find it by doing what the Father has all. Let me just make that more plain for some of you young guys and ladies and help you understand that you will find your purpose doing what you've been told. I see young people in the altar crying and screaming, God, show me my purpose, show me my purpose. Well, what did the pastors ask you to do? What did the head usher ask you to do? Oh, it's tight up in here now. David discovered his purpose, and his iconic narrative came out of his obedience to his, I thought it was going to be 38 seconds, but if you're going to get that tight, I'm going to talk to you about some more Bible that you hate. There was a lot of people talking about spiritual fathers. In a generation of, I started to use the B word there, but I see there's kids in here, so you probably don't use that word in your Bible. But fatherless children are talking about spiritual fathers. Because they roam from church to church saying, that's my spiritual father. 6 months, you'll find them at another church. I watch these crazy people I meet on social media in a church. Oh, this is the greatest place that I've ever been. This church is fantastic. This pastor is awesome. Sister Felicia, a year later, I see them on Facebook. They've been through 3 more spiritual fathers. Watch this. The reason for that is that you are looking for a spiritual father that will promote you without accountability. Father Abraham, ask him to get the puppets ready. I may need them, Brother Daniel. Abraham says to his son when he's about to take him up on the mountain, he says, you come to me on the mountain, everybody else stay down here with the asses. That's why most people promote themselves. They don't want to get stuck with the jackasses. They want to go up from where they are at. And so they say, no. The reason Abraham told everybody else you can't go up there is Abraham knew, you think we're going to get up there and make Isaac famous, but I'm taking him up there to die. I'm going to try to preach that like this. Some people are looking for a spiritual father that will teach them how to live, but a true spiritual father will teach you how to die. And Abraham said, I can't take the rest of you up on the mountain because you think this is about you, but I'm taking him up there because he is ready to die. See, where I come from on the south side, a pimp is who'll teach you how to live, but a father will teach you how to lay down your life. That's the difference between spiritual fathers and most of these preachers who are masquerading in ministry. They're pimping their pulpits, they're pimping their people, and they're doing it to say, I can dress you better, I can drive you better, I can get you in a bigger house, I can make you significant on social media, but God has raised up a spiritual father in this house that says when you're ready to die, I'm going to take you up somewhere that others may not be ready to go to. Why do we have to stay down here? It's not fair. I've been here longer than them. Because you are never ready to serve unless it involves a microphone and a spotlight. You are never ready to say, send me by to run the sweeper when everybody's out of the church. You are never ready to say, let me clean up that parking lot so our guests will find this place presentable when they get here. And a true father has to say to you, I can't take you up there because you think this is about living, but I'm trying to get you ready to die. Thank you, Jules Hirsch, for stepping into the massive shoes of a Kenneth Phillips, who has preached to us for the better part of 6 decades on how to lay down our life. And you came to this city pushing against the tide and against what this generation preaches, to say, if you'll follow me, I'll take you up on the mountain and I'll show you how to lay down your life. Thank you, sir. David is in obedience to his father. Please be seated. You're getting me excited, and I wasn't going to do all that, but David is in obedience to his father when he finds his purpose. I think you understand what I'm saying, and you don't like it. But just to be sure that's the case, I'm going to countersink this. That's why you don't need to hang out with crazy church people who change their church more often than they change their socks. Will I just go where the Lord leads me? No, you don't. You've lost your ever-loving mind. That's what your problem is. Will can we count on you to be an usher? I don't know. It just depends on where the Lord's leading me. Can we count on you to work in the kids' church? Don't know if I'll be here next Sunday. Depends. Come here real close, crazy person, and let me help you with something. The reason the most talented people you know have no fruit to show for their lives. I'm going to say that 2 more times because I know it to be a fact. The most talented people you know have no fruit to show for their lives. The best musicians you know, the best singers you know, the best preachers you know have no fruit to show for their lives, and it's a simple reason, Debbie, because they would not stay planted. They want to change churches, change jobs, change wives, change husbands. They want to change everything. Oh, I'm going to preach it until you get with me or you get out of here. Job lost everything he had, but he would not quit. They said, what if God's going to take your life? He said, he can curse me and tell me to die, but I will still trust him. Listen, my brothers and sisters, what if what you're going through right now is not the devil's fault? Maybe God is the one that said, have you thought about Jules Hirsch? Give him some hell. God's the one that told the devil, do it to Job. Do it, do it, do it. I double dog dare you. Maybe what you're going through is not because God hates you, but it's because God trusts you. And he said to the devil, I don't know about everybody else, but you hit them with whatever you got, and I promise you, they will never curse me. If I kill them, they will yet trust in me. What if that's what tonight was all about? That the devil said, let me get at him, and God said, all right. Then the devil said, let me touch him, and God said, all right. And Job never got a prophet. He never had a Reginald Dees. He never had a Ron Rose. Nobody was going, it's going to be okay. The Lord showed me what you're going through. No, nobody. It didn't make sense. But what if when you walked in this room tonight, the God who told the devil, try to make them curse me, try to make them mad at me, they love me, I can count on him. What if when you came in here and threw your hands up anyway, you were sick, but you worshiped anyway. You were broke, but you danced anyway. What if God reached over and slapped the devil on the back of the head and said, see, I told you they were going to worship me anyway. I told you they were going to praise me anyway. I told you they were going to shout anyway. Man, I made a left turn. I'm going to have to circle the block and come back. But let me try it like this while I'm recalculating the path. Hebrews said these all died in the faith, but never got the promise. Some of you are so sad because the Lord hasn't done it yet. Just hanging on, Pastor Schultz, really believing. These all died having never received a promise. What if the next thing that happens, Pastor Brooke, after this life is over and you didn't get it here, but you kept believing here, you didn't get your hands on it, the check did not come in the mail, the kids did not call your number, but what happens if you die in the faith. And the next thing that happens is you open your eyes in the next world with Jesus leaning over the top of you, and he says, sucker, I knew you wasn't going to quit believing. I knew you was going to go out believing. I knew you was going to die with your faith intact. I came here tonight to tell the devil, I'm still not well, but I still believe him. I came to tell the devil, I don't have all my bills paid, but I still believe him. I came to tell the devil, all is not well with my family, but I still believe him. My faith. That's why at the end of his life, Paul says to Timothy, he says, I have run the race. How many races did you win? Don't know. I have fought the fight. How many fights did you win? Don't know. Then why are you telling all this? Because I kept my faith. I found all kinds of reason to give up. People will lie. People will cheat. People will steal. People will put a knife in your back. But I still have my faith. I came tonight to tell somebody, after all I've been through, I still have my faith. I've been lied on. I've been stabbed in the back. I went broke and lost it all twice. But I still have my faith. If you kept your faith, wave your hand and shout, yeah! Please be seated. I gotta move. I gotta go. That's not even on the menu tonight. That's not even on the menu tonight. In his obedience to his father, David goes to do what he's been told to do, and he discovers his purpose. And when we arrive at the text, David arrives at the scene of the battle. He's behind the lines, and he comes to what the old King James Version calls the Keeper of the Carriage. The transliteration is Calais. He comes upon the Calais, and he leaves his Calais in the hands of the Keeper of the Calais. Literally, he takes his bags and leaves them with the baggage guard. You know why that matters? Because when you are going into the battle, you cannot afford to be distracted by that little note mama wrote you before you left home and told you about how you were her sweet baby and the world revolved around you and you were everything that's ever been right in her life. You can't spend your battle looking at the picture of that little girl you gave a ring to before you got on the bus and rode down to the train that took you over to the airport, that brought you across the pond. And so you got to check all of that, because when you get there, you don't hear what I'm talking about. See, in our Western culture, we are heavily invested into the idea that we're all stupid sheep and we have one shepherd. It was the great Bishop Steve Fender who told me almost 20 years ago, and I've never forgotten it, that after the day of Pentecost, the Lord never calls his people sheep, he calls them soldiers. That's what this Wednesday night revival is about. I am not here for whining, moaning, complaining, crushed sheep. I am here for soldiers who have showed up to say, how can we take it back? How can we repair our families? How can we restore what God has promised? If I got any soldiers in this room, holler if you hear me. Yes. So I want to remind you that, please be seated, because I'm so tired of hearing preening little preacher boys talk about how we're all just sheep. Sheep are stupid. Have you ever held one in your hands? Pastor Ron and I have been down in New Zealand doing evangelistic tours many times during the lambing season. And you can tell by looking at me that I'm an old farmhand and that I'm very comfortable out in the country, in the woods and the trees and the yards and the cow stuff. And so they said, do you want to see sheep? I said, man, do I want to see sheep? And so I have a picture of myself holding a sheep like this, King David. He's all nestled up in here, dumb as a box of rocks. While they're taking my picture, I'm saying, we're gonna slit his throat. We're gonna bleed him out. We're gonna chop him up into tiny little pieces. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise. Because you don't wanna eat full-grown sheep, they're really chewy. But the lamb is so tasty. Little precious, pretty little lambs. And I said, take the picture, and then we're gonna kill them, bleed them out, chop them up into little bitty pieces. And the more I talked that murderous slang, he just got right up in there like, you're awesome. Doesn't that explain to you how most church people live? They will crawl right up in the middle of hell like they are dumb as a box of rocks because they have never been willing to go beyond being sheep to becoming soldiers. But God is raising up a generation that says, I am no longer a stupid sheep. I am called to be a mighty man of valor. I am called to be a woman of prayer. I am called to be a soldier. Let me hear my soldiers holler. Let me hasten. We're at the text. Let me quickly get to it. You got me excited, and I threw in a couple extra things. But let me show you something, because I submit to you, it is our excess baggage that's costing us the victory. I wonder sometimes if people who come among us don't often feel like David must have felt when he went to see his big brothers fighting their perennial enemy, the Philistines, and when he got there, he hears the thundering voice of that giant Goliath saying, send me a man that will fight like a man. And in fear, see, a lot of people bring the baggage of fear to the battle. I wish I had time to work that right there, because most people I know never actually face their enemy. They spend all their time and energy running from the Just come here real close and you tell me if I'm right or wrong. Do you ever talk to crazy little people who explain to you all of their problems, articulate them in painful detail, and as they're doing so, you're saying to yourself, I wonder if they know that's not really their problem? Because most people never really face what their real problem is. They just blame it on their cousins. They blame it on a school teacher. They blame it on a president. They blame it on all kinds of things rather than facing the giant that is in the room. And I wonder, after hearing us say, I went to the enemy's camp and I took back what belonged to me, I wonder if sometimes people are not like David when they come among us and they are disappointed to discover that many of us have never even faced the real giant in our lives. We've just gotten real busy running down in the trench and hiding and popping our head back out on occasion. Down in the trench and back out. And they grabbed David when he arrived and they said, what are you doing here, man? This is no place for a kid to be playing games. But one of the beauties of having stopped by the keeper of the carriage, the baggage guard, one of the things about stopping by the depot was that David had dropped off all of the fear with which his brothers were encumbered. And I've come here tonight to tell somebody who is afraid to face your greatest fear. You are afraid to face that secret. You are afraid to face that pain. You are afraid to face that lie. God has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. And I submit to you that Jesus is the keeper of the carriage, and if you will bring it to him tonight, he will set you free to live your life again. A year and a half ago, the powers that be conspired to flip the switch on fear. And what we have discovered is fear is a lot easier to turn on than it is to turn off. If you didn't like that, you're going to hate this. Fear is a liar. I don't mean it just lies. I mean it's a liar, and it is a lie. The old timers used to say this when I was coming up, Pastor Reginald, the devil is a lie. A lot of people say the devil is a liar, but the old timers said the devil is a lie. What they were alluding to is he's not just a liar, he is an actual lie. He is not who he I'm about to get myself happy. He is not who he represents himself to be. As a matter of fact, when we first lay eyes on him, we're going to say that's the guy that made me suicidal. That's the guy that made me want to blow my brains out. That's the guy that held me in fear. My brothers and sisters, I want to let you know that one of the masks that fear wears is wisdom. And people have worn that out for the last 18 months. I'm not in fear, I'm just being wise. And it exposed something we've been dealing with for decades in the Western world. We make a pious icon out of our fear. And rather than discarding it, we worship it. And I've come here tonight to tell you, this isn't about the pandemic. This isn't about a vaccine. This isn't about a mask. This is about what the enemy has been doing to your life for generations. But there is a David generation that is standing up to say, I would rather die trying than to live one more day afraid of what is going to. I came here tonight to preach to somebody who says, if I got to live one more day in fear, if I got to live one more day of what the cancer is going to do, if I got to live one more day of what's going to happen to me, I'd rather die. Please be seated. I'm just one more thing here, and I'm done. And his brother said to him, because this is the thing about fear, if it stays long enough, your greatest battle will be just to try to preserve yourself. And that's most church people you know. They haven't brought anybody to Jesus in that 8-passenger vehicle in so long, they don't even know what the back seat looks like in it. They haven't brought anybody to Jesus in so long that they don't even know how to lead them in a prayer of repentance. They don't know how to give them a sinner's prayer. They don't know how to lead them to the foot of the cross because they have been so consumed with preserving themselves. This is a Saul generation that summons in young David, and the Bible says in the narrative that they dressed him in Saul's armor from head to toe. There is a generation lingering, smothering the life out of the next thing God's gonna do, because Pastor Scholes, what they're saying is the best we can hope to do is survive. You are not going to defeat that giant. You are not going to have victory, but if you will put this armor on, we can at least help you survive the day. My brothers and sisters, I've come here tonight to submit to you that some of us are not just trying to pay the light bill. We're not just trying to keep the church doors open. We're not just hoping to have another 52 Sundays of programs. We are ready for God to send a revival that brings our sons back home, brings our daughters back home, brings us healing and deliverance from cancer and leukemia and diabetes. There is a David generation that is not content to just survive. We want to shake the foundations. David said to the king, he said, sir, listen, there are some people that just haven't fought a battle in so long, they forgot what victory tastes like. David whips out a bloody bear's paw. He whips out a bloody lion's foot, and he says, listen, king, I realize that this is a matter of life and death, but this is a bear that came from my father's sheep. This is a lion that came from my father's sheep. And here's my thing. That giant is uncircumcised. He has no right to talk to us like that. He has no right to treat us like that. And I'd rather die facing that sucker than to go back home and tell my dad that we are being held hostage. Is there anybody in this room that is ready to stand behind the Schules and Brookhurst and say, we may die trying, but I'd rather die trying than to live one more day just trying to keep the lights on? David, if you're marching, I'm marching with you, because this is not living to live in fear. And tonight I offload my fear with the Keeper of the Carriage. I'm done. Please be seated. This is it. If I had time to sermonize like you brought me here to do, Pastor, I would illuminate all of those points, but I will conclude with this simple illustration. For some people, fear is not your baggage. There are some people in here that are carrying the burden of an incident on the backseat of a bus when you were 8 years old. There are some people in here carrying the burden of a father that got up and left your family in the middle of the night. My experience has been, Pastor Brooke, that most of the burdens we carry are not ones we ask for. But you can never face your enemy, Pastor Ron. And consequently, you will never have victory until you have discharged all of those things you have carried. Watch this. I'm done. I realize I haven't sermonized, but I have dozens of sermons on the table you can take home tonight for almost nothing. $20. Karen, Jesus is headed to Calvary. Cross on his back. 3 gospel accounts say that a man named Simon from Africa, Simon the Cyrenian, was jerked out of the crowd Two of the gospel narratives say he was compelled. In other words, they forced him. They put Jesus' cross on his back. Oh, wait a minute. Does anybody hear what I'm talking about? Is there anybody that ever had a cross forced on you that wasn't yours to carry? That's really where the generational curses come from. Person that's been molests somebody else, and then they molest somebody else. Everybody keeps passing the cross on. And there are young people in this room tonight who are carrying a cross they never asked to carry. There's some old people in this room tonight that never got rid of a cross. You, like Simon, are stuck with a cross that was never yours to carry. It's not fair. You didn't do anything. You didn't ask for it. And now you are stuck with it. You were just trying to be the best wife you could be. You were just trying to be the best father you could be. You were just trying to be the best son or daughter that you could be. And now you are stuck carrying. Does anybody hear what I'm talking about? Yes. You're carrying a cross that should never have been yours. I remember the first time I heard my father say this 40 years ago, and I haven't thought about it in 20. But today, the Lord said to me, remind my people, they don't have to die on that cross. If they will just get it to the top of the hill, I'll take it. And I will die on that cross for them. There are some of you in this room tonight who have a cross that is killing you. And it's not fair. You didn't ask for it. I wonder if Simon felt like I have often felt in my life. Why did he pick me? Why was it me and not the kid next to me in gym class? Why was it me and not the other kid sitting on the back seat of the bus? Why was it me and not my cousin that my uncle came for? Why did they pick me? The randomness of it all. But Jesus says, if you just get it to the top of the hill. And I'm here tonight to tell somebody in this room, you can't be more than 35 steps wherever you're at in this room. You can't be more than 35 steps from getting that cross to the top of the hill tonight. And if you get it there, that cross that you've been carrying since the divorce, that cross that you have been carrying since that awful night when you were 8 years old, that cross that you have been carrying for most of your life, if you will get it to Jesus, Simon, you don't have to die on it. Jesus will die on that cross, and in turn, he will infuse you with life. I feel God in this place right now. I see those tears in your eyes. Would you do me a favor? Would you just lift your hands up right where you're at, right where you're sitting? Just lift them up as high as you can get them. When you've carried the burden so long, when you've carried the hate, when you've carried the envy, when you've carried the strife, when you've carried humiliation and shame, when you have carried your baggage so long it feels like it's just yours. But you are so close to the greatest victory you have ever had in your life. You are so close to the victory, David, that will define you for all time immemorial. You are right on the brink of the greatest thing that has ever happened to you. And all you have to do is run to the Keeper of the Carriage tonight and say, here it is. Here's my burden.